recent decades, changes in climate have caused impacts on natural and human systems, on all continents and across the oceans. Severer droughts, more frequent floods, and changing sea levels. In fact, climate change is altering the lands and waters that we all depend on for our survival, leaving the future generations with a very different world from the one that we are growing up in. An estimated 200 million people could be displaced as a result of climate impacts by 2050. In Africa and Asia, almost 1 billion people could experience shortages of water by 2080, and more than 9 million could fall victim to coastal floods, and many could face increased hunger. The NAP is the abbreviation for the National Adaptation Plans process, and it's a medium-term framework to help countries to deal with climate risk, from the next 5 to 20 years onwards. There's no time frame defined, but it is to make sure that countries can start thinking about the actions they need to take to deal with this kind of risks in all the sectors of their economy and also in all parts of society. The parties to the UNFCCC established the NAP process in 2011, and then in 2012 they detailed the NAP technical guidelines. In 2015, the Paris Agreement emphasizes increased financing for NAPs in developing countries. The NAPS process has 4 main elements: laying the groundwork and addressing the gaps, preparatory elements, implementation strategies, reporting, monitoring, and review. These guidelines are flexible so that country planners can take NAP steps relevant to their own country context. This NAP process will help planners to find country-specific solutions tailored to their needs.
Well, we started as an LDC, we started planning of our adaptation priorities back in 2006. All this work has been done under the umbrella of the National Climate Change Committee, which was the interministerial body in charge of climate change. But early this year, the government decided to establish a National Council for Sustainable Development to be responsible for all the cross-cutting issues, including climate change, biodiversity, biosafety, green economy, science and technology.
Currently, as part of the policy development process, we are trying to see how we can have a climate policy review process for financing, and then we would try to see how we can codify our budget codes to reflect what we are spending as a country on climate change, both in terms of resilience and disaster mitigation issues. And then we would also cost our adaptation needs as part of the NAP process.
One of the main challenges that we have in terms of accessing financing for adaptation is to be able to develop project proposals that are fundable. And most of the times this relates to the rigorous requirements or processes that need to go into project proposal development for you to be able to access funds for large-scale projects. Because an example is under the GCF, you need to prepare or to undertake feasibility studies as part of project proposal development. So that requires a lot of capacity.
C'est que le NAP, c'est vraiment une synergie au niveau des différents secteurs, arriver à travailler ensemble, vraiment parce qu'il y a des questions transversales. Donc une des questions qu'on se pose, c'est la coordination du NAPS. Et aussi, il faudra faire jouer un rôle critique au secteur économique, donc au ministère des Finances. Donc il faudrait, je pense que déjà là, ils sont, avec cette COP21, tout le monde est davantage mobilisés. Donc ça peut être vraiment un atout pour que le ministère des Finances s'engage avec nous pour accompagner les secteurs, pour travailler ensemble sur le document NAPS et sortir des programmes qui réellement sont des programmes d'intégration comme le veut la procédure NAPS.
We want to be a prosperous, climate resilient economy. And when you bring it to the national programmatic goal, we are saying that we want climate change mainstreamed in most of the economically important and vulnerable sectors of the economy by 2015.
Sometimes very different processes is a challenge. And the adaptation committee has tried to find a common ground language where people can actually understand the complexities that happened in the context of these negotiations, like right now here in Paris. And at the same time, the complexities that are happening in every country.
So what NAPGS we could support is how the government wants to initiate the process is initiated, what the government now wants, whether they want to assess the capacity and identify gaps, or they want to prepare the stock taking reports, or they want to prepare the roadmaps. Based on that, then we can move to the vulnerability assessment, scenario analysis, risk assessment. So the stock taking, I think, is much more important first.
Because most of these funds require co-financing, the better approach is to try and see if countries can have partnerships with other existing organizations. If the Ministry of Agriculture or Environment or Water or Public Works is carrying out a program in adaptation, they should work in partnership with the private sector.
The notion that the adaptation is by Ministry of Environment. So that's the notion we have to break first, so that not only Ministry of Environment but also other ministries need to be joined.
From the least developed countries to developing countries, governments and development agencies have worked hard for decades to lift people out of poverty. Now the impact of climate change is threatening to undo this hard work. We need to act now to reduce its cost to human development, and we need to adapt now so that our children and grandchildren can have a promising future.